Start with the name of Allah, who is the most merciful and grateful. Dear students of class second year, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome you in Pakistan International School Taif's virtual learning system. Dear students, today we have English lecture number 7, grade second year, and unit 2, hope and aspiration. Dear students, last lecture we completed the unit 2 and unit 1 and its grammar as well. So today we are going to start the unit 2, hope and aspiration. And here's your teacher, Sarfaz Nadeem. Dear students, reading selection 2.1, I Have a Dream, Martin Luther King Jr., and we have an intermediate English book for grade second year. And today we will learn the pages from 41 to 48. Dear students, the unit comes of this lesson. By the end of unit 2, the students will be able to read and comprehend the lesson, understand the message conveyed in the lessons, comprehend the themes of the text, enjoy reading the poem and find out the message conveyed to the readers, write short essays on Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela, improve their vocabulary, and have the knowledge of pronouns, relative pronouns, understand the importance of the text, and improve reading, speaking, thinking, and writing skill. Unit 2, Hope and Aspiration. Dear students, as usual, that every unit contains 3 readings. So same here in Unit 2, we have 3 units. And number 1 is I Have a Dream. Number 2, Glory and Hope. And number 3, I Dream a World. The last number 3 is a poem, and first and second are the speeches. Pre-reading, I Have a Dream. Have you heard the name of Martin Luther King Jr.? He fought for the rights of Black people in the United States of America in the 1950s. This was a momentous speech that paved the way for the Negroes to have their rights. What kind of dream Dr. King Jr. is talking about? Do some research to find the conditions in which the Black people lived that prompted this speech. Reading selection 2.1, I Have a Dream. Dear students, we are going to start our lesson. As I told you, this is on page number 41. So let's start the reading. 5 score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of captivity. But 100 years later, we must face the tragic fact that the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society, and finds himself an exile in his own land. So, we have come here today to dramatize an appalling condition. In a sense, we have come to our nation's capital to cash a check when the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They were singing, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall here. This note was a promise that all men would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, dear students, in these three paragraphs, we understood that the I Have a Dream is delivered by an American activist, Martin Luther, against the racism, injustice, slavery, and inequality of Negro in front of 250,000 people on their way to Washington in Lincoln Memorial. Martin Luther, in his speech, gives an allusion to the Emancipation Proclamation, which took place in 1863. He says that the fact is that Negroes is still not free. He says that the Negro still finds himself exiled in his own land and living in poverty. Dear students, we have another paragraph. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we have come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the rich of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America and the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to open the doors of opportunity to all of God's children. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Dear students, in the previous paragraph, the Martin Luther King that Martin Luther says America has given the Negro a bad check marked insufficient funds. They have come there to remind America the promises of real democracy. He says it would be very fatal for the nation to ignore the rights of Negro. Now from here, it would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the movement and underestimate the determination of the Negro. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening of if the nation returns to business as usual, there will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundation of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining a rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let's not seek us to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people, for many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny and their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. Dear students, in these paragraphs, Martin Luther says to his people that they will get their rights on a right way. They will not create the environment of bitterness and hatred. He reminds the importance of unity and presents the evidence of the presence of white people among the black people and says that white people realized that their destiny is tied up with the black people's destiny. And on page number 42 and last, and as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, no, we are not satisfied and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering, continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Here, dear students, in this paragraph, these paragraphs, Martin Luther says that will never satisfy until the Negro should have what the others possess. He tells them that some of them have suffered a lot of to reach there. Go back to Mississippi, go back to Alabama, go back to South Carolina, go back to Georgia, go back to Louisiana, go back to the slums of and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow the situation can and will be changed. Let's not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, that in spite of the difficulties and frustrations of the moment, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a desert state sweltering with the heat of injustice and oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day the state of Alabama, whose governor's lips are presently dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, will be transformed into a situation where the little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls and walk together as sisters and brothers. Dear students of class second year, in these paragraphs, Martin Luther says that they will never satisfy until the Negro should have what the others possess. He tells them that some of them have suffered a lot of breach here. In the end, he shares his own views with them and says that he has a dream. He explains his dream that this nation will rise up, all people are created equal, there will be the atmosphere of brotherhood, there will be no discrimination. I have dreamed today, I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith with which I return to the south. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. This is the students' kind of poem. that he is hoping that one day our children, we all are brothers, we all are equal, and we will sing like this, the my country, it is of the sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountain side, let freedom ring. He said this kind of poem over there. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous peaks of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill, Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. When we let freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up the day when all of God's children, black man and white man, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Dear students, in this last paragraph, Martin Luther says that it is up to them to produce hope out of despair. They will work, pray, and struggle to get freedom together. And one day they will be free. The people of all races will be able to join hands and sing the words. What the words are? Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. So, dear students, this is all the reading of the lesson. We read the lesson, and now let's move to another page for the introduction about the author. Let's see what is about the author. About the author, Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. King, both a Baptist minister and civil rights activist. Now, dear students, here there is an introduction of Martin Luther King, that he, both a Baptist minister and civil rights activist, had a seismic impact on race relations in the United States. Dear students, here the word is a Baptist minister means someone who administers a baptism to adults who profess to be Christians. And here this a seismic means there's earthquake or kind of, the so this is seismic relating to or caused by earthquakes or earthquake tremors. So in the United States, he had great influence. Beginning in the mid 1950s, among many efforts, King headed the SCLC. Now, dear students, what is the full form of the SCLC? Southern Christians Leadership Conference. And this kind of organization was headed by the Martin Luther King in 1950s and 60s. Through his activism, he played a pivotal role in the ending the legal segregation of African American citizens in the South and other areas of the US, as well as the creation of the Civil Rights Act 1964 and the Voting Rights of Act 1965. King received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964 among several other honors. King was assassinated in April 1968 and continues to be remembered as one of the most lauded African American leaders in history, often referenced by his speech, 1963 speech, I Have a Dream. Dear students, his speech, this one, I Have a Dream, played a vital role to get the freedom to the Negroes in the USA. So dear students, this is page number 44. Now we have a central idea, theme, conclusion, we can say, in other words, whole sum up the lesson which we read, right? We have completed right now. What is the central idea? What is the conclusion of this lesson? Let's have a look over here. The emphasis is on the negation of racial segregation in the society. A nation cannot enjoy the glory of democracy without treating all the sections of community, rich and poor, high and low equally, and is judged not by the color of their skin, but by the contents of their character. Now, dear students, in this whole theme, central idea, some of we learned that a nation cannot enjoy the democracy without treating all the sections equally or communities equally. You are not supposed to say that the rich is better than the poor, or the high are the better than the low, or you can't say that you cannot even judge by the color of their skin, but the way only is their the contents of their character. So, dear students, now we have a new vocabulary. Here you can see we have page number 45, 46. There are lots of words or difficult words, meaning if you will read this, I try to give you the explanation of the paragraphs, but more words meanings are available on your book on page 45, 46, and 47 and 48 as well. So dear students, we have on page number 48, study questions, recalling we have, and page number 49, we have interpreting, extending, oral activity, and writing as well. So dear students, you are supposed to, after the reading, you can write the answers of these questions and then send it to me. And what about the next lecture? What will be the next lecture? This is pronouns and kinds. This is a grammar, dear students, and these are on your book, page number 49, 51, until to the 55. There are the pronouns and kinds, and what kind of kinds are there? Students, indefinite pronoun, demonstrative pronoun, distributive pronouns. So these are the pronouns which will the topic which we have in the next lecture. This is all about today's lecture, dear students, and thank you for joining me. And inshallah, I will see you. Take care and Allah Hafiz.